What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Major Keyz podcast with your host, Zach Wilson, talking to keyboard players about music and life and everything in between. Today, as always, we have a special guest, Mr. Julian Pollock, aka J3PO.
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks
Hey,
for having me
man.
on the show.
Absolutely no problem, man. What's going on with you?
Man, chilling in LA, back from a little bit of touring, heading back out tomorrow, and surrounded by a bunch of beautiful keyboards.
Hey, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it, I guess. I haven't hung out in LA yet. There are a couple of people on the podcast who I've interviewed, and they're my homies, and they live in LA, and they're like, "Man, you got to come out to LA, man. The weather." I was like, once I get a chance to, I will. I went out there like very briefly for like
Mhm.
one show, but like I didn't see anything. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
literally like Airbnb sound check show, and then I flew home. So
Hey, man, that's how you gotta do it sometimes, though.
yeah, got you. So yeah, man, let's start from the top. How did you get started? How did you get started playing keys?
Piano or keyboards?
However you want to do it from the very top, like when you first put your finger on middle C, like from the
Yeah,
top, like
that was,
the interest, all that good stuff.
yeah, when I was a kid, 5 years old, man. My mom's a pianist, so
Okay.
little C cam at 5 years old from my mom, and she taught me all through my youth, up until like high school, basically, and still beyond, still to this day. You know,
Oh, nice.
we're always learning from our elders, our parents, um, and my mom's a classical pianist, so obviously it was classical repertoire. I started studying jazz around 10. You know, influenced by the kind of usual suspects like
Hmm.
Oscar Peterson, Herbie Hancock, Bill Evans, all those the classics. Um, and started playing. I didn't. I always had an interest in keyboards and electronic music production, uh, but that didn't really kind of manifest itself till I was in my mid 20s.
Hmm.
Honestly, I was just playing acoustic piano, up until that point. Dabbling on a motif, playing the Rhodes patch or on a Nord, Nord Electro 2, you know.
Man, yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of the background.
Got you. So you came from a musical family. Your mom was classical pianist. Like that was her full-time job, was
Yeah.
being a musician.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, both my parents, my dad also. I mean, to this day, he's a saxophonist and symphony conductor.
Okay.
Um, they're both, based in northern. The bulk of that was based in Northern California. My parents also did teach music lessons, also to make ends meet as I was growing up. 4 days a week. So that was a big part of growing up. A lot of my friends studied piano with my mom. It was a
Okay,
very
got you.
tight knit community there in Berkeley, California. But yeah, but my parents both full time musicians, making what money there is to be made in music
Yeah,
from
yeah.
you know. So
So so your mom just started teaching you, or did you like say you watched them and it was like, oh, I want to do it? Or was it like a mandatory thing? Like, yeah, yeah, we all play music, you're gonna play music.
definitely not mandatory. When when I was in kindergarten, in my cubby, the kind of learning piano books at the time. I forget what method my mom was using at that time. I can see it in my. I can see the image of it. I just forget it. I don't think it was Faber. They weren't doing it at that point in the early '90s. Maybe they were, but some piano study books for children landed in my cubby at school, and I was like, oh, this is for me because I'm gonna start learning piano. Oh hell yeah, I'm excited. And
Hmm.
I got home, and it turned out those books were actually for one of my mom's other students.
Oh, okay, got you.
So I was like, hey, like, what about me? And
Mm,
so my mom was like, "Oh, really? You want to take piano lessons?" I was
mm.
like, "Yeah, let's go." And so we did one lesson. I was excited, and then I was like, "Oh hell no!" And then my mom said, "Oh hell yeah!"
So why
So
were you like, oh no, like why? Like,
it was hard, you know. It was
okay,
like
yeah, that was my next question. Yeah,
it was challenge, you know. I mean, for any, I think for most 5 year olds, it's like, you know, you hear about the ones who are, you know, crazy prodigious at the beginning who just
yeah,
take to. I was not that. It
yeah.
took a long time for me to,
Same here. Yeah.
you know, and yeah, I was just thinking about that Corey Henry video, and he was like 3, just
Oh,
ripping
of
it.
course,
You know,
everyone
it's
knows
just
that.
like
Yeah,
that's rare, you know.
yeah, I know.
But so yeah, my had a much more humble kind of entrance into music. Yeah.
No, that's funny. I remember because that's kind of a similar story. Like I was kind of thrown into piano lessons because I like to like sing and dance around the house. I wanted to play guitar first, but my dad like wanted to put me in piano lessons first. To this day, I actually don't know why that was the choice, but I've said it in this podcast multiple times. My piano teacher almost cut me from lessons because I wasn't getting it at first when I
Well,
was 5. Yeah, so he was like, he almost told my mom. He was like, you're wasting your money. Let's, you know. So, but anyways, he stuck with it for some reason, and I'm a musician. So, but no. So so classically trained. So when do you think you started to get it? So you were yeah. So when did you think you started to kind of get it and grasp on and maybe enjoy it for yourself?
I think middle school, you know,
Mm,
6th grade. I think I remember there was a piece by Beethoven, Pathetique Sonata, a very famous one. Um, and it was the first time I was like, oh, I actually really want to be able to play this.
yeah.
And so I that was the first time I really applied myself without like my mom saying you need to do this.
Mm,
And then I started taking jazz lessons, and that was a little bit easy, not easier to do, but just easier for me to uh, have an ambition with, just
okay.
because of the nature of improvisation and like the funness of hearing something like Herbie Hancock playing Chameleon like on your back wall over
Oh yeah,
there.
man. Yeah, yeah.
You know, nice Glasper's record is right next to it. That is definitely, yeah, those two records right there, decades apart, but both they definitely have similar influence on the music community at large.
Oh, definitely pivotal. Definitely pivotal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very pivotal. Um, so yeah, and then by high school, sorry, I went to Berkeley High, which was is known for its legendary jazz program. You know, everybody from Joshua Redman, Benny Green,
Oh wow. Okay.
Rose Ankin Muzure, Justin Brown, Thomas Pridgeon, Jonathan
Oof.
Mason, Peter Applebaum, Mike Auberg. I can't name everybody. Charles Altura. Um, you know, so many guys, gals came out of Berkeley High, and when I got there in 2002 or whatever it was, I already was like, I want to do this. I want to do this jazz thing. I want to get good. I want to be the best. You know, all that kind of that
Okay.
young fire. You know, so then practicing at that point was like I remember in sophomore year I was taking this history class that was just the teacher was just so whack, and
Oh man, why were they whack?
why they're just like showing movies and like just stupid, you know, just wasting time. So I would like sneak out and go to the A building to practice.
Oh wow. So
I
they
just
were
did
just phoning
that.
it in.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
teacher.
So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, so I'd either ask if I go or I'll just split and go and you know shed or if I you know on the crappy upright piano in the A building, and yeah. So and then high school. By the time I end up you know by halfway through high school, it was obvious. Like, I was you know like I want to do this you know super hard. Just like you know so many out there
Hmm.
in our community. It's because I think you know like with music, yeah, it's like you got to do it or you know you're gonna die or you're gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah. You're in or out. Yeah, you're taking my questions from me. I was like, what was the?
Wow.
I was like, what was the? I was gonna be like, what was the switch? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm good at it, but now I want to do it like for real. So,
I think
but
that
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the thing that I think makes us want to do it or die is that feeling
Hmm.
that we can get when we, you know, get high from hearing something or playing something, or that religious experience that we can tap into, um, when we hear or are playing music, whether it's related joy or sorrow,
Hmm.
and and everything in between. So I think for those of us who started the earlier we're able to kind of grasp onto that, the more longevity we have. I think the danger, though, also is the kind of fireworks thing that can happen. Like a lot of kids, including myself. Like I remember, you know, in early high school. I don't know if you know this pianist Taylor Eichste.
Okay, I don't know who that is. No.
Oh man, check him out. Taylor Eichste, Eigsti. This dude was just a few years older. I mean, he's still a few older than me. But at the time, I remember, I mean, he was just blazing at the time.
Hmm.
Blazing. Still is. Still one of my favorite piano players. Also a friend. Um, but yeah, like being like at the Stanford Jazz Workshop and seeing a kid who's just a couple years older than you just literally obliterating the piano. It seems that you're like, oh, I want to do that. That's awesome.
Hmm.
It's like sports or something like that. It's like, how does that person do that? So, but then the danger of that is, you get lost in the fireworks instead of
Hmm.
like the soul of music.
Yeah.
I think every young player at some point who has chops to burn has to deal with that, has to deal with becoming an adult musician,
Mm.
where at a certain point everybody's got chops. Sure, some people have more blazing chops than others, but at the end of the day, it's all about communication. It's all like, sure, Corey Henry can play most people under the table.
Hmm.
That's not every reason. That's not the main reason why people want to go check out the show or check his
Hmm.
music. It's because it resonates. It feeds the soul, and it's impressive too, which is fun. It keeps
Absolutely. Yeah.
keeps you locked in. And as a matter of fact, I think that's the ultimate is when somebody like Corey Henry. I'm just talking about keyboard players.
Hmm.
Brad Mehldau,
Yeah.
Taylor also, uniting uh, the ability to have, you know, tremendous facility on the instrument and to be breaking boundaries within the instrument, but uniting that with, an artistic output that uh, portrays the human condition.
Hmm.
And those musicians are the ones that do it. And then the ones who either fall left or right, meaning either ones who are only trying to be expressive. I'm talking about probably a lot of people in the pop music industry,
Hmm.
or people on the far right who just are interested in either chops or very intellectual processes. It's like those people end up falling off eventually
Mm.
because when you have one or the other, it's not good enough. It has
Yeah.
to have both.
Gotta have that balance.
Exactly.
Got you. So what was the gigs? Was there a gig scene for you like in high school at all?
A little, yeah. We had some local spots to play, and there's an amazing place in Berkeley, California called the Cheese Board, which is a collective, and they sell incredible cheeses that are made. It's kind of a European vibe. Cheeses made in California, cheeses made everywhere. They also make incredible bakery, breads,
Mm.
everything. But they're a collective, and their whole thing was about community. So they had live music there almost every day, and
Mm.
they'd hire local people, local trios to come in and play. And because it was the Bay Area and there was such a vibrant jazz scene at the time, I think there still is a vibrant jazz scene in the Bay Area. I have a feeling though, and I've been hearing this throughout the community, that because the Bay Area has gotten so expensive, like
Mm.
you're just not seeing that many people moving there anymore.
Got you.
So, but back in the day, I think I was where I was there. It was kind of the tail end of like the kind of affordable Bay Area vibe, and so yeah, there was a lot of cool local gigs. My high school was obviously we did all the jazz competitions, and there'd be little things that pop up. So yeah, like having gigs in high school was a thing, and it was so great to be able to start getting that professional experience, whether it's playing at a pizza place or not. I mean,
Right.
still you're performing. You're providing a service. You're giving a concert. Anyhow, so
No, no,
that's
no. I got you. So yeah, so that's high school, and then you went to college. Where did you go to college? Your major was music performance
yeah. I had a full ride to Berklee College of Music, but I ended up
in
going
Boston.
in Boston. But I ended up
Yeah.
going to NYU for various reasons that are
Hmm.
uh, maybe I won't share
You don't
on
have
this
to. You don't have to.
podcast.
You don't have to. You don't have to. Yeah.
Um, but there's positive and negatives to those decisions.
Hmm.
Uh, but being in New York was, yeah, that's where I cut my teeth. I'd say finally when I got out of college, that was when the real work began. You
Hmm.
know.
Got you. But I want to talk about your college experience because you were like I guess music performance. Was that when you were commissioned to write like these pieces in that sort of situation like that? Or was that
Oh,
after or was that
like
after college?
orchestral compositions you're talking about?
Yeah, the orchestral compositions.
Yeah.
Like I want to know what that sort of approach is, and like how did you go about that? Well, for one thing, explain like what it was, and then like
Sure.
the process.
Yeah, so I did go to school for performance and composition.
Okay.
And while I was at NYU, I did study. My main teacher there, his name is Ezequiel Viñao. He's an Argentinian composer, incredible. I studied with him for a few years while I was there, doing classical music and not classical as in Mozart, but, contemporary music, that's uh, very challenging.
Mm,
And I didn't really take to what that community is doing with music right now. I value the information that he imparted with me and the kind of way he thought about music and a way a lot of contemporary composers think about music. Um, and I then studied a bit with Gil Goldstein, who's a great pianist, accordionist, arranger, composer who's worked with everybody in jazz. And that was actually liberating because finally I was able to get some things done
okay.
with him. Because with studying with Mr. Vignau, it was like I could barely write two notes before it was like, hey, no, no, wait, it needs to be like this. It was
Hmm.
very, and looking back, I can have a more mature attitude about it in the sense it was like, yeah, he was right. But at the same time, like, if I were to ever teach, production or composition to people, which I'm not teaching too much privately these days, but my whole ethos is like, let's talk about how it could be better. Let's make an edit, but let's move on because there's no better way to learn than to keep writing. You
Okay.
know, just if you work on one thing and try to make it the best thing ever for 6 months, it's you got to get from start to end. You got to complete that process. I just saw a little bad snack. She just posted something. It was like I think she was imitating a clickbait thing. It was like, number one tip for producers, and then it just cut to her saying,
Just
finish
finish the session.
your song,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
your songs, and
Hmm.
that to me that is everything because we get on here on Ableton or Logic and we're like, oh, let me just start this new thing. Maybe this will be it. But it's the discipline of going back and finishing your ideas. Not every single idea, but a large majority of them. Because you have to hash out real problems then.
Right.
You're not just coming up with an idea. Because everybody's got good ideas.
Hmm.
There's not anybody in this business who doesn't have good ideas. But being able to finish the idea,
Hmm.
hard work. That's why, when people outside the music business are like, "Oh, that person's so talented. Oh, that person has such an incredible voice." Like all these kind of like, very flowery kind of adjectives. Is like, nah. The successful people are the people who finish things, who get the work done.
Mm.
So
Very true.
anyhow, back to in college I studied. I thought I maybe wanted to be, like a composer. I
Yeah.
just was listening a lot to John Adams. Who's probably America's most celebrated contemporary classical composer. I
Hmm.
actually know him personally and had a funny lesson with him where he was basically like, I don't know if this is really for you.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, which, at the time I was devastated, but he kind of imparted to me a vibe that I actually now see where I am now in a way is because of that.
Okay.
So it's like, as you were talking about, like with your piano teacher when you were five, telling your mom or your dad, like, I don't know this, he's really cut out for it. Obviously, that was not good. We didn't want that. But I think a little bit of that, that reality, the truth, like
Yeah.
later in life, not for a 5-year-old, but for
Right.
somebody, like in education, there's not enough of just the truth because everybody's afraid that like okay they're not going to want to study with me anymore or the school's afraid like oh we're not going to have any students because we're too hard on them, but it's
Hmm.
like actually when you're hard on somebody and giving them that real uh, that realness,
Hmm.
that's what allows for people to grow, not just like oh you sound so great.
Oh no, definitely. Because that was my first piano teacher. I've had four.
Yeah.
And by the time that this comes out, all of those episodes will have been out because I interviewed them all this season. But no,
Wow.
every one of them like I had a like my first piano teacher, and then like his who ended up being his son-in-law, like he would help me break down like all the classical stuff. And
Nice.
then I the music minister at my church at one point in time, like I took lessons to him to learn gospel, and then my jazz professor at school. So, but no, there have been points and times that they've all told me like, "Hey, you need to get it together." And then also there have been times where it's like, it's not it. Like you but like of course, like you go home and it's kind of frustrating or like whatever,
Painful.
especially because especially if you think you're doing well,
Right.
but like no, it's important
Yeah.
to have like you're not gonna get that far getting a cosign on every single thing that you do. But
Right.
it's just not like
Yeah.
it's just not like that in
Right.
life. So
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think that the balance with that, especially if any teachers, it's like if teachers can somehow impart that, but also encourage to keep searching. That's the golden.
oh
That's the
yeah,
goal.
of course. Like after you get beat up, they're like, hey, I'm only telling you this because I want you to get better. So
Yeah.
it's not just like
Here's a way. Here's a way to get better.
mm-hmm, right, that too,
Practice
that too.
this thing. Practice playing with the metronome on 2 and 4. Practice on just 4. Practice it on the dotted coordinate. Let's check. All these specifics.
Yeah.
Specifics are everything in education.
Oh yeah. No, that's good. That's good. So college you're doing so you've commissioned these pieces you do them you're like not necessarily what I want to do for real.
Yeah, I got out of college. I wrote a piano concerto. I mean, this was also my dad, who's a conductor.
Hmm.
I had an outlet,
Yeah.
nepotism and all. I mean, he's like, yeah, because like his orchestra, those people all knew me as a jazz piano player. So it was like, I had been performing there as a jazz piano. So it wasn't, to perform with the orchestra was just it was like a cool thing. It was
Yeah.
like people will come out and check it out and see. I mean, I was like 22 at the time, so I mean, at the time I thought I was an adult, but now I'm like, damn, I was young, you
Yeah.
know. And but yeah, I mean, the piano concerto I wrote, as far as just a piece on its own, I listened to it actually a few years ago when I found it when I was cleaning out one of my hard drives during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what? That was all right. There
Hmm.
was some good things about it, and we played it. The orchestra played it. I got to do it with my dad. It was a beautiful experience, and I'm so glad I did it. Is it one of the greatest pieces ever written? Probably not. I don't care.
Right.
It was a tremendous experience. I wrote another piece for orchestra the following year called Night Flower. It wasn't a concerto, and that was definitely more trying to assimilate into the composition, like the kind of the aesthetic, more of the aesthetic that is been more popular in recent years, and that was cool. But I think eventually I always had the itch for pop production
Hmm.
to kind of dip my toes a little bit into the sound of gospel music,
Hmm.
um, and when I was 25, I finally just like gave myself permission just to like
Hmm.
float into whatever I wanted.
Yeah.
And I always look back at that as a pivotal moment. I think a lot of people have pivotal moments in their mid 20s.
Hmm.
where it's like you need to, as much of as a trope it sounds, but to follow your heart. I mean, it's just because you can't you'll run out of steam if
Hmm.
if you don't just do that. That doesn't mean you're not going to work hard, but you have to use that as your compass.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So I guess since we're here now, so let's uh dive into, well, did you tour after college or was that later?
I toured a little bit, I mean, I would tour with, small jazz groups, that were
Hmm.
more avant-garde. I tour with my own trio. I put out a couple records under Julian Pollock before I had the J3PO moniker.
Hmm.
And that was cool, but, very kind of moderate, low-grade success. And we had some tours. And I played with a lot of singers right
Okay.
out of college, particularly one incredible vocalist. Her name's Grace Weber.
Okay.
Uh, Um, and we toured a lot of the kind of like grassroots stuff.
Hmm.
And that was cool. I was hanging in New York at this spot called Rockwood Music Hall, just because I felt more of a kinship there with the community in terms of just the creativity and license to kind of just do whatever you want. Whereas I felt like there were at the time, I don't feel this way anymore, but at the time I just wasn't ready for the kind of the rigor of what the Jazz Cats were wanted to participate in.
Mm.
I wanted to feel music that was being felt by others. You
Yeah.
know, whether it was something like one of those like kind of poppy folk bands back in the early
Hmm.
2010s. Just that feeling of being young, living in New York, just like I needed that,
Yeah.
and like, going to the club and just like playing monk tunes or like it just it at the time I've completely gone the other way now, but at the
Hmm.
time I was just so enamored by yeah, just that young feeling.
Yeah. Got you. So let's transition like from when you went to Julian Pollock to J3PO. So what was that like? Because you said like you gave yourself permission to dive into like whatever you wanted to. So what was that like? And
Yeah,
then like how do we get the J3PO, I guess, that we kind of know now? Like, very tech heavy, very synthy, all
yeah,
that sort of vibe.
yeah. That was a fun transition. Um, I had I just made a my final or second and final jazz trio acoustic piano record called Waves of Albion. And on the record, the first tune was a cover of a tune by Bon Iver, and the whole thing was very influenced by that mood, that
Hmm.
kind of melancholy uh, mood. And all this was coming from that Rockwood that scene, the
Hmm.
early 2010s, the indie folk rock stuff, um, and it kind of led me. At the time, I was just feeling really lost because I had been trying so hard to kind of make a mark within the jazz world as a pianist. This
Hmm.
very high notion as other people who are, I'd look up to somebody like Aaron Parks or something like that and be like, oh my God, like I need to be like him.
Hmm.
And but then I finally figured out I was like, nah, man, you need to go inward. You need to
Hmm.
go inward. And so I started floating around in there, and of course, like I just started resonating with stuff that actually was from my childhood, like Blackstreet.
Mm.
I listened to Another Level when I was a kid on repeat.
Hmm.
I remember listening to Luther Vandross. I remember listening to even like Will Smith, just like, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, all that music. And I, I also remember listening, most importantly, to Zapp and Roger.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And my introduction to Zapp and Roger, of course, was in elementary school, hearing that Tupac song, "California Love."
Yeah.
And of course, everybody like it was like, "What is that? What is
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Yeah.
Who's that? What is that singing robotic voice?"
Hmm.
There was also vocoder, and of course, over the years, it's like, "Oh, no, it's actually a talk box. It's very different,
Then a
and it's
vocoder.
actually
Yeah.
way harder to play." But yeah, so somehow I ended up like just deep diving into Zapp and Roger
Hmm.
to a point where I was like, I gotta get a talk box, man. Like, I
Yeah.
have to have one. I just love this sound so much. So I got one. I got one on eBay. I got a golden throat from the 70s.
Hmm.
I ended up buying DX 100 off eBay. Oh man, I was so excited. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I remember getting that thing and like I started trying to play it and I was like, I am trash. Like,
Dog, I remember because I still have a talk box. I think I need to take it back out because I
yes.
bought it. Or no. I got it as a gift, and had the desire for it. So I had seen Stevie Wonder do it on his live in
Yep,
O2, the live at the O2 thing. I seen him do it. Um, Sean Martin, I
of
saw
course,
him do it,
of course.
and then 24 Karat Magic came out too.
Mr.
So
Talkbox,
so yeah, Mr. Talkbox. So I was like,
Byron Chambers, right?
yeah, Mr. Talkbox, Byron Chambers. So like I wanted to do it, and I was like, I kind of got it, but I don't sound like Sean or Mr. Talkbox, and so it's been up. It's been, I still have it, but I
Nice.
just gotta, it's a art to it. But no, it's definitely not like you can do it, but it definitely takes. It's not just singing and playing at the same time,
Oh,
which is actually very hard. Which is actually hard to do if you don't do it a lot.
oh man. But man, I locked myself in the shed for 6 months.
Oh wow, yeah.
I shed the hell out of that.
Mhm.
And then once I was like, okay, I can actually do this now. I can actually play the talk box and my words,
Sounds
sound
clear. Yeah.
and everything. I was like, what am I gonna do with this? And I was like, you know what? I'm about to start doing these covers. And so I started doing 90s pop tunes reharmonized.
Hmm.
And then I was like, dang, I got an EP. I can't put this out under my name. All these people who've been listening to me, like, like everything I've built up into this point has been acoustic piano, like very like
Yeah.
semi-classical. So somehow, like the drummer in my trio, I remember he called me one time and he just started off. He left a voicemail. He was like, "Yo, J3PO," and I was like, at the time, I was like, What is that? Why would you
Yeah.
call?" Obviously he's Star Wars C3PO. But then somehow that rung in my ear and like I was like, I'm playing talkbox, speaking a different language. It's kind of robotic.
Hmm.
And turns out J3PO is my initials.
Yeah.
J
Yeah.
and W for waterfall. That's my legal middle name, and then P for Pollock. So I was like, you know what? My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she made
Nice.
she made the logo. That's
The logo that we know today.
yeah,
Oh
that one right
wow, that's
there.
cool.
She designed that. She just drew it actually on a piece of paper when I think we were like out at some cafe or something like, or whatever.
Wow. And that's how the man.
And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to put this out because I want to have an outlet for this. And I was kind of like, this is kind of a joke. I'm probably not going to do it forever. And so I did that, put out that. Then I tried writing my own original tunes. That was a flop. That was trash. And then on Instagram, I was like, you know what? I'm making all these beats. Let me just start putting out just some videos where I just like film myself just playing along to a beat. Turns out those are the videos that people actually started checking out. And I was
Hmm.
like, this is weird. Because I had started the page for this Talkbox project. And, but nobody was really digging on the Talkbox stuff except for the Talkbox heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think for a lot of people, the sound of the Talkbox, it's either you love it or you hate it,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know? Um, but yeah, I just started putting out more and more beats, more and more weird stuff.
Hmm.
And it was kind of a thing that happened together where it's like, if people are saying, I like that, and you like it too, you're like, well, I should do more of this because we're all vibing to this.
Yeah.
And eventually I realized, you know, this keyboard thing and sound design thing actually is probably more of my bag than anything.
Yeah.
Uh, making weird sounds, weird beats, new sounds, sound designing on synths, sound designing in the box, and so I just kept rocking with it,
Hmm.
and it just was a feedback loop that has continued to this day now.
Yeah. I rem I heard something. I don't remember the exact moment I found out about you. I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember it was before the pandemic. It might have been Nick Simrad might have helped out with that. Probably he probably
Yes.
helped out. He probably helped out because like I know Nick from the Funk Apostles, all that sort of stuff. But no, the Adele, the Hello cover is like
Hey.
that's the yeah. I was like it was it, and it wasn't even the talk box. It was like how you decided to. It was like the vamp, like how you did that part, like the reharms on that. And I was like, oh, that's the
Right.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
it's funny you say that it wasn't in the talk box because what I realized was that was just a vehicle
Mm-hmm.
for that stuff underneath.
Oh yeah.
And when I play live, I tried, to do some shows live, and I was always like, I want to be playing the keyboards. I don't want to be doing the talk box part.
Mm.
So that's eventually why I dropped it because I was just like, I love talk box, but for me it can't be the main thing.
Yeah,
Because for me
got
the
you.
the fun part of the whole project was like exploring something like hello and how having these shifting harmonies and different timbres and arrangements that to me was the fascinating part.
Mm-hmm. Is there an approach that you have when it comes to doing reharms?
Yeah, it's hard to explain though. It's more of a feeling.
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's coming from years of playing jazz and
Mm-hmm.
jazz harmony,
Yeah.
and studying stuff like Bach, having good, counterpoint and voice leading and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But then the real thing is, like I've never played gospel music. I've never played it in church, but that sound to me has always been I don't know, like the truth, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I always have, like, that's the sound I'm going for, but coming from maybe the world that I've inhabited in terms of study. Um, and yeah, when I'm reharming something, I want the main thing I'm after though is um, balancing how far we're gonna go out, and then how to bring and when to come back into
Yeah.
something familiar. Because in jazz school, like when you do reharm, it's like the most ridiculous thing ever because it's never based on what sounds good. It's always just like, oh well, did you use the subdominant of the brother, and did you use
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
flat
Yeah.
line? And we can use this chromatic voice instead of being like, let's use these tools, but let's always come back, and also more importantly, let's find what sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think one thing about, I'd be curious your thoughts on this. Somebody who's schooled in gospel music versus jazz.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the fundamental difference is that, from my viewpoint, in the church, it seems like a lot of stuff is being taught more, if not all, by ear, versus something like jazz, which is primarily nowadays being taught with the eyes.
Yeah.
When it's being taught by ear, it's just better because everything makes a lot more sense harmonically, and if we're going to compare it to food, everything also just tastes better.
My opinion, so because I've learned both ways.
Right, that's
Because
what
I've learned
I'm
classical, like reading it, and then like when I was learning gospel music, he didn't have sheet music for me. Of course, he had learned the song before he taught me.
Yeah,
But then like I was learning from him. But then like when I got a little bit older, like I took those lessons for like 2 years. I was like from like 10 to like 12 and a half ish. And so
yeah,
like when we got further in the lessons, he would like help me like train my ear.
yeah,
I think they're well, I mean, like as far as skill set, they're both necessary to have. I think if you learn on paper, then it just gives context to what you hear.
right,
Like what a 251 is when you play it, but like learning theory, you can
yeah,
learn, oh, that's just a 251.
right,
So I don't know if there's one necessarily better. I think you get more nuance if you hear it. But like
yeah,
of course, in a pinch, iReal Pro is
right,
is a lifesaver.
right.
So is it quote unquote better? Um, I will say if I had to choose between only knowing how to do one or the other, I would say hearing.
Oh hell yeah.
If you had to choose, but I think they're both important, but no, like even when I was in college, like there was some stuff. Well, when it was time to do like a transcription or whatever, best way to really learn is like by hearing, because you get all the nuance, you get exactly how they play the lick, because you can read it and it can help, but it ain't really what it needs to be. But when you didn't do your lesson on time and you try to fake it and sight read it, and it's but like my teacher will be like, you haven't really listened to this, you haven't really practiced. So both I think both of them are good, but
Yeah.
I think the hearing thing, especially if you're trying to get the feeling or get the vibe, the hearing is the by ear is where you're going to get the most out of it.
Yeah. It's just funny to me how in like the collegiate environment, like there's just not enough emphasis on learning stuff by ear. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just so, Western European centric
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, uh, like there was only a handful of times when I was in college they were like, here, just learn this record by ear. I remember I forget which Herbie record it was. It was one of the really out ones, the really avant-garde ones.
Mm-hmm.
And our teacher, Alpha Alessi, incredible trumpet player, had us. He was like, "I don't want you guys to write it down. Just learn it." And at the time, I was like, "This is bullshit. Like, this is insanity because this is so out already."
Yeah.
I wish I would have had a teacher who was like, "Here, play along to these bebop records that where harmony is like that.
Yeah.
Completely rooted. A lot of the language, is codified." And so from now, when I learn tunes, I always, not always, but I try to I just put on my iPhone, iPod, and or my
AirPods.
AirPods, and go to
Yeah.
the and just start listening before I pull out iRealB or a
Mm-hmm.
chart. Like I just want that visualization or that oral visualization is so much more. It lasts so much longer. Like
Yeah.
since I ditched charts,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that was like honestly one of the first gigs I did that for was Marcus Miller's gig because I was like, I'm not showing up to a Marcus Miller gig reading.
Mm.
So once I knew I was going out, I was like a month before, I was like, I'm gonna learn all these tunes, and by learning them by ear, it's like not only did I have such a better understanding of them, but then
Mm.
also on the bandstand, I was just so much more aware of what was going on, and more importantly, you don't forget it then.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you have to do a brush up, but it's just amazing. Like if I had to go on stage with Marcus tomorrow, even though I haven't played with him for a few months, it's like, let's go. I
Yeah.
know that. So any artist now that I'm playing for, that's including myself, if I'm gonna do a gig, like I don't want to be reading
Mm-hmm.
ever, if possible.
Got you. Got you. This is a great segue. So how did this Marcus Miller gig come about?
Sure.
And what was that like the first time you got that call? Like what's the like explain the situation.
Yeah. Um, Marcus is one of those gods who's loomed large in my mind ever since I was a kid. I remember
Mm-hmm.
seeing like the Miles Davis documentary and seeing him talk about playing with Miles, and of course, all the bass players when I was growing up were just, Marcus is just, he's just a legend.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I was playing in a band, and the reason I got the call for that gig, I was playing in New York with a band called the Lesson GK,
Mm-hmm.
and Nick Semrad had moved to LA, and I somehow ended up playing in that band a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually where I developed a lot of what I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that I would attribute also to Nick
Mm-hmm.
himself. He's definitely one of the reasons why I play synth. It was kind of like it was out of necessity, but then also it was like, oh wow, this is amazing what this dude has developed. So I was playing there, and the keyboardist who was playing with Marcus at the time, Brett Williams, also another insane beast on the instrument. He lives
Mm-hmm.
in Australia now, but he had been doing the gig for 5 years, and he was looking to drop out and be able to kind of focus on his own career.
Mm-hmm.
So he had been coming to our shows, and he recommended me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
And that's just a case in point, man. It's like in this industry, it's who you know, not what you
Hmm.
know.
Right,
There are a lot of people who could play with Marcus. you know, I just got lucky.
right.
Um, and so the first gig was in Japan. We played at the Blue Note for a couple weeks in Tokyo.
Did
And
you rehearse and audition before you got to Japan, or was it like, hey, here's the set, know it, we'll see you. Here's your flight.
pretty much just show up. There was a rehearsal right before we played, at sound check basically.
Yeah.
Um, and what was crazy is also like there wasn't just a set. It was like here's 30 Marcus Miller tunes and learn them and here are
Like
the
just to be ready to pull from.
yeah here and the way we play them live is not the same on the record. So if you're listening to the records, you're really not you're not getting a head start. So I was actually able to meet up with Marcus independently at his studio in Santa Monica
Mm.
like a month before because it was during the holidays. And so I actually did at least get to spend some time with him one on one, just like kind of going over some of the voicings. There's no charts for anything though, I mean, like all the in Marcus's his voice leading is crazy with his compositions. Everything's very, like there's a lot of improvisation, but it's also very specific.
Hmm.
Uh, so that was cool. And but yeah, in terms of playing with the band, it was just like show up to sound check, let's go. I have to admit, I don't think I've ever been so nervous in my life
Wow.
on that
That was it.
first gig because it was just like I was playing key bass,
Mm.
all the colors, and I had it all orchestrated. But there was also something about just like saying like I'm about to play key bass under Marcus Miller right now for the I'm
Yeah.
like it's hard to impart that feeling, but it was felt so like I'd been playing. I love playing key bass, but there was
Hmm.
something about oh my god. But we got through that first gig, and
Hmm.
yeah,
And here
kept
we
it
are.
going. Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, because I what happened? I just missed y'all when y'all were in Atlanta because I definitely wanted
Oh,
to definitely
yeah.
do
We were at what's that? It's really close to
St.
where.
James Live.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
That was
anyways,
that was a fun one. That was a fun
another
one.
time.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that's happened to you on a gig?
Oof.
Or the worst gig that you've had? But like preferably like, when you're behind the keys, like what's the worst thing that's happened? But either way
Man,
you frame it.
worst thing like something I did or something that happened to me.
Either one. Either one. A horror story about a gig that you were on.
um, man, when I was living in New York, my mid 20s, I was playing some wedding gigs that was somewhere pretty terrible. Uh, this one actually always jumps out, and that is I was playing with a killing band. We were out in Long Island, and we were playing. We were having a good time, and the guests were not like getting up and dancing, but whatever. They were kind of far away,
Hmm.
and then people started dancing, and it was cool. It was a little lukewarm. And at the end of the night, like we were playing one of the last songs, and this older lady just comes by, and she drops a nice little note off on my keyboard, even though I wasn't the leader of the band. I was
Of
like,
course
okay.
not. That's exact. They've got to find some because that happened to me a couple of gigs ago too. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. Yeah.
So, and I thought it was gonna be a love note or something really nice. And I opened it up and it was like, "You guys are so disrespectful. How dare you play this loud at my daughter's wedding?" And it just went on and on and on. And I was
Oh, it
like,
was a paragraph.
"Oh, that was a full page, like saying how horrible we were." And so I was like, "Yo, band leader Alden, I got a love note for you." So I handed it. So it's not it. It didn't really affect me, but I was just like, I had never had an
That's so
experience
wild.
where I mean, I've been playing in, little bars or restaurants where like they're like, can you keep it down?
Yeah,
Just like that. Everybody's, dealing with that. But yeah, that
that's
was
something.
like, that takes effort. You gotta like, right. I
Like
hate
she was over there like the whole time. Just I got something for them. I got something. I want to know like what well why do people like and this is not just weddings but like you hire live music and then turn it down. I'm like dog like do you want to see or not? I don't get it. top three keyboard players you know, and then like top three like national keyboard players. If you want to add five to not leave somebody out, you go ahead.
Top three I know, and then top
And then top three like national like names.
living or dead.
This can be living or dead.
Okay. Top three in my circle, definitely Nick, just because he's Nick Samurai, because he's just changed my life so much with the idea of playing
Mm-hmm.
synths. Um, there's so many, man. Like, I love what Kiefer has done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just love the sound and more. He's somebody who's, like the aesthetic is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge, never sacrificing emotion for virtuosity. I love
Okay.
that. I think as I was saying earlier, in a day where it's just like a day and age where chops are so valued and such, like I mean, Kiefer's got chops, but it never overrides emotion.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe I'd say Taylor Ixty just as a number. I mean, there's as I said, it's hard to narrow it down to three.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just because I've known Taylor for so long and he's such an incredible player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, List goes on and on, and on obviously. Um, and three non-national living or keyboardists or pianists or what?
If you can play the ivories, ebony's and ivory. If you want to do organ, you want to do synth, you want to do it doesn't matter.
Man, obviously, I think Herbie from
Mm-hmm.
mid 60s to the mid 70s, you know, definitely. And I actually got to hang out with Brad Meldau not too long ago.
Oh wow, dope.
I got to play some pads while he was soloing when we were
Mm.
on the show with Marcus, the Blue Note Cruise.
Yeah.
But I mean, Brad's been such a huge influence on me and the piano community at large. I mean, it's just like
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of to me he's the equivalent of like he'd probably hate this, but like Michael Brecker on the saxophone, just in the sense that like an instrumentalist who came along kind of like after like kind of like the first wave of like Miles Coltrane, all that the
Yeah.
kind of wave to change the instrument to a point where it's like the amount of people who can't get away from trying to sound like that is just ubiquitous.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it honestly to try and once again search within instead of with
Mm-hmm.
outside. So yeah, Herbie, Brad, and probably J.S. Bach right now. I know
Oh,
he's not,
Bach. Okay.
but okay. Andras Schiff is a classical pianist who I listen to playing Bach all the time,
Got you.
and those are the I think those are the things that really kind of
Got
percolate.
you. Cool. Got a couple more for you. This question, it's been stumping a lot of people, but it's one of my favorite questions. If you can build a super group, that means whoever you want in your rhythm section, you can do horns if you want. Rhythm section plus a lead singer. This is unlimited availability, unlimited budget, but
Mhm.
they just have to be alive. Like this actually could happen. It just it's very unlikely. Like you can grab or it could be likely. You can grab whoever you want to for whatever the band, lead singer or vocalist or whatever. It's gone off the rails. It used to be one of each, but like I had a guest, he had Corey on organ, he had Herbie on keys, he had Greg Gaines on ox. Like he did everything. It's like
That's
you can kind of do what you want. But
yeah.
what is your super group? The only thing is they just have to be alive for this.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I know, or a lot of those people are just like one call away.
All right.
And
Well, if you know the people, that's cool too. So go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but to me, it's almost like what's the gist of the project first? Because like
It's
there's
a it's a show. It can be a house party. It's just a suit, whatever you want it to be. Well, what group do you want to see play together?
You know, man, I feel pretty blessed in the sense that I think I'm already doing it. Uh, right now, I'd love like Hadrian Furrow on bass. I mean, he's just so ridiculous. He's one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
I put him on bass. I just did on this latest single. Can't think of another bass player right now who I'd love more to fill that role.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm right now I'm just thinking about the music I'm creating right now.
Yeah, and also this doesn't have to be you playing either.
Oh,
Yeah, no, yeah. Let me. My bad.
what,
This doesn't have to be you
a
playing.
concert for me to go to?
Yeah, yes.
All right, all right.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be you. Yeah.
Man, they have to be living. And I would go see them play.
Mm-hmm.
Quentin Gaskin on organ. Sheree Reed on bass.
Mm.
Uh, Justin Brown on drums.
Mm. Okay. All right. All right.
Um, Isaiah Sharkey on guitar.
Of course.
Um, Billie Eilish on vocals.
Hmm. That now that was out there. That was out there. I okay.
Um, Bad Snacks on violin and production.
Okay.
And I think that would be the most random kind of.
That's an interesting group. I promise you Billie Eilish was nowhere near where I thought you would. That's an interesting group, yo.
You know,
They're
she's
doing Billie Eilish songs or like they're doing like whatever Billie whatever.
yeah, weird. Like how, because like that could go so weird.
It's got potential to go a lot of directions.
Yeah.
I dig it though. I dig it.
Isaiah would be allowed to sing though. He would be allowed to sing.
Okay. All right, cool, cool. I dig it. I dig it. Cool, man. All right, last thing. What do you want to leave with the people? You've given a lot of words of motivation and gems and stuff, but what do you want to leave with the people?
Leave with the people, man. I think we've we've more than covered it. I guess that you know that same thing I was talking about earlier about going within.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being influenced from the outside, but at the end of the day, prioritizing emotion over virtuosity, and following your heart in a non-trope way.
Got you.
Um, uh, it's hard to say these big things without being corny, because
Right, right. But
it's
sometimes it's necessary.
yeah, and never stop learning, never stop. It's I think it's very easy, especially for musicians actually, who do make it all the way into the professional scene, to stop searching because there's like if you're touring all the time, there's actually very little time to devote to searching because you're just constantly on the stage playing what you know, or you're dealing with your body and traveling, and you get home you're exhausted. So I feel like always finding that kernel of something that's new, whether it's old or it is indeed new. Um, I think that's the most important thing for any musician to be on.
Got
Inspired
you.
by.
Hey, that's cool. Socials for the people to follow you.
Oh yeah. Instagram, I am J3PO. My website is www.j3po.net, and my Spotify is J3PO and also Julian Pollock. It's funny. I was just having this conversation with some people and my wife actually. It's amazing how connected it is in Spotify, but still, it's amazing how like when you enter an artist's name, like it doesn't populate with all of those projects. Like for example, like if you type in Brad Meldau, you're gonna only get certain trio records. But if you type in Brad Meldau trio,
Oh, then it gives you, yeah,
and it's like all that stuff should be in the same place.
should be,
You
should be.
know, and especially if you're somebody who has like a lot of projects and you have a moniker or several aliases, it's like Spotify should somehow.
They should figure that out.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I hope people go check out the music more. That's the most important part. I was actually when I was talking to Zach Barnes yesterday,
Hmm.
I was saying, it's funny with social media, the social media stuff. It all, everyone wants to see people rip. They want to see what they're working on.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, what do we all want? We want to be putting out our music, and we
Hmm.
want to appreciate the music we put out. So I encourage everybody to, who's checking me out, check out
Yeah.
my music more so than my Instagram. And
Hmm.
for all the artists you check out on Instagram, make sure you're going to see their actual, the proofs in the pudding. Go check out the pudding.
Oh yeah, go check out the pudding. Yeah, that was my next thing. I was like, check out Bloom, the newest single from J3PO. You got an? Is there an album following this?
Yeah, so it's basically done. Bloom actually is kind of the end of the last two album cycles. Although there may be a follow-up called Sweet Treats in the near
Hmm.
future, which will be short little vignettes, more like a beat tape from all the things that maybe didn't get released.
Okay.
This new album that I'm working on is much more in the vein of Bloom, and even the whole more so because the whole album is kind of an exploration of the duality of playing piano trio like I did when I was in my early 20s, and this kind of whole electronic synthesis meets post production world.
Mm.
So that'll be the kind of the gist of the new album, and I'm really excited about that because those are two things that I've always been really trying to unite.
Got you. Well, y'all follow J3PO. Y'all keep up with that. Bloom is out right now for sure. Like I don't know when this episode comes out, but for sure Bloom is out right now.
Easy.
Um, that's been another episode of the Major Keys podcast with your host Zach Wilson, guest J3PO. Keep pressing on. We'll see y'all next time.
Hey.